Hi friends, welcome to the program. We're headed north by northwest today, all the way up to Alberta, Canada, where we're going to join our good friends Dan Fox and Jack Sampson and a friend of Jack's, Mr. John Kirby, as they go out on a bear hunt. Now I should tell you right up front, the guys are going up to hunt with Wayne Zapp's Hunting Adventures, and if that name sounds familiar, if you're a frequent flyer, it's because our good buddy Mr. Bill Funk went up and hunted with Wayne and shot a tremendous color phase bear just one short year ago. Well, after seeing that program, a couple hundred times, the guys decided, you know what, we're going. They'd never been on a bear hunt before. Neither of them have ever shot a bear. So they loaded in the truck and they headed north, and we got to go along and share in some of their adventure. I got to tell you, folks, when you get up to country like this and see this many bears, it does something to you. It's so exciting. The guys are going to go up there. They're going to have a great time. And more than that, I bet they're going to come back with just a few stories. Hey, I'm your host, Kyle Randall. This is my Wilderness Journal, and we're headed out on a little something I like to call the Captain Dan and Fast Jack show right now. Friends, when you first get into a camp, you want to meet your outfitter and your guides, find out where you're staying, but most of all, you want to get out hunting. And not 2 hours into that first hunt, Jack was watching his third bear, believe it or not, working its way into the bait. And this one was certainly big enough to be a shooter. After giving him a long, hard look, the decision had been made. If this bear turned to where he gave him a decent shot, Jack was going to try to fill his first ever bear tag. Now all he needed was, for this bear to turn and give him a decent shot.
I think there's another one.
And then, when he did turn, he just turned and walked away. Fortunately, not 20 minutes later, the same bear was slowly working his way back into the bait. He came walking right straight in, face on to Jack. He still didn't have a decent shot. But this time, friends, this time you could bet, if and when that bear did turn again, Jack would be ready. The bear stood, still face on to Jack, testing the breeze. He seemed more than a little bit nervous. But then, finally, he turned and worked his way back to the bait.
Awesome bear, Jack.
You can hear him, man. That bear, really happy with that.
Oh yeah, he's a solid 6-footer.
Nice coat on it.
Oh, beautiful. Man, it took him a long time to get in position. I can't see very good here. I was having a hard time staying on him. Ooh. I heard him crashing a bit. It took him, at least 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes before he finally gave us a shot. That we could get some good video, and it all worked out. I was worried there for a minute.
Yeah.
He went away, and I thought you were going to...
He went away, and luckily he came back in.
Yeah.
Worked out just perfect.
He was pretty nervous. Even the birds were scaring him.
Yes, he was waiting for the big dog. But I'm tickled to death with that dog right
Oh,
there.
yeah. He's solid 6-foot bear. Beauty.
Good paw.
Good old paw on him. Imagine if he swatted you with one of those.
You're not going to have a good day.
It wouldn't be a good day.
Not going to be a good day.
Congratulations, Jack. What a dandy bear. Folks, there are so many critters. One of the hardest things to do is kind of control yourself and wait for a really good one. And Jack, you obviously did a great job. And I should also tell you, because Alberta allows hunters to harvest more than one bear a season, Jack can actually, if he chooses to, head right back out into the woods and go back to hunting. And speaking of hunting, You know, our man Dan is out in the woods, and he's seeing plenty of bears, too. A little after 6 that evening, Dan was watching a sow with 2 cubs working their way into the bait. This big old girl had one black phase or normal colored cub and one blonde that was just a carbon copy of herself. She was truly an impressive bear, but being as she was a sow with cubs, obviously not a shooter. Still, watching these cubs playing on that barrel and messing with each other was great entertainment until a shooter did show up. And then, after feeding for 20 minutes or so, the sow got nervous and worked her way back into the trees. And not 5 minutes after she left, a different bear was slowly working his way into the bait site. Only to be ambushed by a surprise attack from that sow.
Are you having fun yet? Absolutely.
And not 10 minutes after she ran that other bear off, both her cubs came working back into the bait site. It was pretty obvious that sow considered this bait to be her spot, at least for now. It was also fairly clear that these two didn't know how to share. You know, they didn't play well with others. That seemed to be a family trait in this group. Dan sat, watching the entertainment, hoping that a bigger boar would show up and run these cubs off. But unfortunately, good show or not, the only other bear that showed up that night was their mom. Yeah, she came working her way back in just at dark, and I imagine it was about at that moment when Dan finally realized, hey, I gotta get out. That moment, right there. That's my favorite moment in all of bear hunting, especially when I'm out with a new guy, somebody that's never done it before. The moment they realize on the first day that it's getting dark, and hey, I got to get out of this tree, and there's bears everywhere, and I got to walk out of the bush in the dark. Yeah, especially with a 300-pound overprotective sow sitting right underneath your tree. That, my friends, is a moment. Yeah, Wayne came in and ran her off and took the guys out, but still, that sometimes is what has to happen, and I'll tell you, you haven't lived until you felt your pulse race as each foot hits a rung going down that ladder. Sometimes you just got to live a little. Back in the same stand the next evening, the slightest snapping of a twig, a medium-sized bear was nervously working his way in toward the bait. This wasn't a bad bear. Actually, it looked like a pretty good bear. Now, Dan was going to have to decide. Was this, in fact, the bear he'd come all the way to Alberta for? And then, when the bear started getting nervous and actually got up and started walking away, yeah, Dan had made his decision. He was going to wait.
That one was borderline shooter.
And then, just before dark, another bear, a bear slightly larger than the one Dan had just passed, was working his way into the bait. And while he was definitely coming, he was being more than a little cautious. His body language seemed to telegraph he was used to finding a bigger, maybe badder bear at this bait site when he approached. He finally did come in and settle down, and that meant Dan was faced with yet another decision. Was this the bear? And then, as if to help Dan make his choice, the bear got up and walked right straight to him, right over up underneath his tree. He'd definitely get a good close look at this one, if nothing else. And with that good close look, yeah, the decision had been made. Dan was gonna wait. Well, obviously, Dan was seeing plenty of bears, just not the bear, you know, the one he truly wanted, and that's okay. Although I will say I was a little surprised he didn't have a go at that last one. That one looked pretty good to me. Still, he was looking for something special, and that's what this kind of hunting is all about. You get choices. There's so many bears. You get to choose, and you need to. You know, there's all kinds of bears. You're looking for something that truly makes you happy. And speaking of making you happy, John Kirby was on a stand over by the river, and trust me when I tell you, the number of bears he was seeing, it was making him plenty happy. From his stand on the edge of the river, John was seeing plenty of wildlife, but what he really wanted to see was, yeah, one of those. A bear was working his way up the far river bank, nose into the wind, obviously coming to the bait. And then, for some reason, he turned and actually spooked. And then the reason the first bear spooked came walking up along the same river bank. A larger bear was working his way in at the same time, and that first bear figured, you know, it's best maybe just to get out of the way. And just after the first bear left, the second bear walked out on the beaver dam and started crossing the river right down in front of John. He was obviously coming to the bait, and pretty soon, John was going to have to make a choice. Once the bear got across the river, instead of going to the bait, he turned and came up a fallen tree, more or less right at John. That decision I was talking about, it was fixing to be right in his lap. Fortunately, the bear turned around and started working his way slowly down the tree again. That is, until he heard a whooping noise out on the beaver dam. Another bear was coming in. This appeared to be a chocolate-faced bear, an even bigger bear. John watched as the two Bruins passed each other. This chocolate-faced was obviously the more dominant bear. The smaller black bear went back across the river, and the larger chocolate-faced started working his way in, and that meant now John was going to have to decide, was this the bear he wanted? The guys told me John had talked about hopefully getting a lighter colored bear, a blonde or even a cinnamon bear. Still, this was a pretty nice boar, certainly one worth considering. And friends, here on the Journal we have a policy. Never look a gift bear in the muzzle, 'cause that might be the last time you see him. And then John's decision on whether or not to take a run at this bear was kind of made for him when he noticed an even bigger bear working his way in from the left. This obviously wasn't a color-phased bear, but it was indeed a big bear, at least 6 foot, at least 300 pounds, and it really didn't take long to figure out what John thought of it. He mouthed the word shooter bear. So now all he really needed was for the bear to get over in front of him and present him with a decent shot. And fortunately, and despite the fact that he was being more than a little cautious, the bear was coming. He'd circled all the way around and was coming right straight in at the bait, right straight head on to John. And then, for whatever reason, heard something, smelled something, saw something, the bear turned around and went right straight back out again. But in the end, well, it really didn't matter because John had already decided. Yeah, this one, too, was a little too small. John was obviously seeing plenty of bears as well. Unfortunately, he hadn't seen a color phase bear yet, at least not a big one. He really had his heart set on taking a big old color phase, hopefully a blonde or a chocolate. And the bad news? Yeah, it just got too dark for our camera gear that day, even though there were plenty of bears moving. The good news was, it didn't get too dark for John. He shot a tremendous chocolate boar right at last light. Congratulations, John. What a great bear. And while I'm handing out congratulations, I should also congratulate Andrew and his son Kyle. They shot a great color phase bear that same evening as well. They were obviously on the move, the bears I mean. And with all of this movement by bigger, older bears, I figured, it's just a matter of time before our guy Dan got his chance. At least that's what I was hoping. Dan was watching first a good-sized sow, and then all three of her cubs worrying the same beaver carcass. Now, friends, if you believe that Boo Boo is this fluffy little critter that's out there in the woods playing around looking for picnic baskets, you give a listen to these three very young bears arguing over who's going to get to eat the most of this raw meat. Yeah, even when they're little, these aren't babies, these are bears. And speaking of bears, while Dan was watching those cubs, Jack noticed another pretty good-sized bear working right up underneath them. This bear made its way right to the base of the tree the guys were sitting in, and now, friends, that will get your attention.
I don't really like them right underneath me. Makes me a little nervous.
Trust me, friends, a couple of 100 pounds of bear slapping 3-inch long claws into the tree you're sitting in, well, it'll make you a little nervous too. And as you can see from this rather shaky video, it wasn't the only time that happened. And I'd venture a guess as to say when a bear that size slaps up against the tree you're sitting in, it appears to make camera guys a little nervous as well. The guys were fine. The bears were, like I said, obviously moving. It was just a matter of time, but they were running out of that time. They were down to their last day, in fact, and if Dan was going to pull the trigger on a bear for himself and make this the perfect trifecta, yeah, he kind of needed to get to doing it, say, now.
The last night out. Night number 6. Gotta make it happen tonight.
So this was it, the proverbial last night on stand. But, as luck would have it, a big old boar was actually working his way into the bait. Dan got his gun up, he got ready, and the bear ran off with the bait. Hey, I said as luck would have it. I didn't say anything about good luck. So there they sat, watching a little more than a squirrel eating on a donut when Dan looked over and noticed another bear. This one, however, seemed to be awful cautious. He was coming in from the west, and he was being real careful, just like a small bear will do. This was obviously not a shooter. This little bear actually already had rub spots on him where he's trying to itch off his winter hair, but it really didn't matter. He was definitely not a shooter. He snuck over to the bait pile, grabbed a little mouthful of food, and then went right back out. A sure sign that you're looking at a real young bear, something that's real low on the pecking order. Still, at least it was a bear. And not 10 minutes after that little guy left, Dan noticed movement coming back on the same trail. He figured it was probably this. Wait a minute. That's not the same bear. This was a much bigger bear. A great last night, heckin' any night bear. And trust me, friends, nobody had to tell Dan this might be his very last chance to tag out. He had his gun up and was just waiting for him to come sideways a little.
You ready? Take your time. Hit him.
bear on the last night out. We saw lots of bears. I think I saw 17 different ones. It's been a great hunt. Activity every night we went. We passed on so many bears. I shot one earlier, but I wanted to shoot one more this last evening. First one we didn't get on film. We filmed this one. Just a beautiful black. Big old hairy coat on it. Big head. It's a great bear. Had a wonderful hunt. Great hunt.
Congratulations, Dan. The last minute, a tremendous bear. You know, everybody on this trip got a great bear. This is the kind of place, this is the kind of trip. These guys will be reliving and retelling this story till everybody they know is sick of hearing about it. That is what Wilderness Journal quality memories look like, and I promise you, this is one of them. Well, there you have it. The Captain Dan and Fast Jack Great Bear Adventure. What an adventure. Congratulations again, guys. Certainly congratulations again to Mr. John Kirby, to Andrew and his son Kyle. I truly thank all you guys for taking the cameras along and letting us share in that great camp. And if that's something that appeals to you, if you'd like to go up to Alberta and try your hand at taking a big old bruin of your own, well, you get a hold of our good friend, Mr. Bill Funk. He's on our website, and he'll hook you up with Wayne Zass Hunting Adventures, and you can go up there and give that a try yourself. And if you do, well, I hope I see you up there. I hope you're coming out of the woods with a big old bruin of your own, and if I do, well, you know we're going to stop and share that cup and a fire. And if I don't see you up there, friends, I truly hope to see each and every one of you right back here, where we're going to share yet another adventure from my Wilderness Journal. Well, congratulations again, guys. What a tremendous hunt.